it's going to be a battle of speeds here as we get into our very first game of the Juniors Division Europe International Championship Grand Finals between Alexander and Francesca.
It's definitely going to be all about setting up Trick Room for Alexander. He has actually 3 ways to set up the Trick Room between the Dialga, the Ice Rider Calyrex, and the Mimikyu as well. But Mimikyu is kind of the safest. With that disguise ability, very easy to say, okay, as long as I just deliver a fake out in this first turn, then you know what? I don't have to worry so much about getting hit twice and then going after those tough choices. Disguise will keep you safe. Francesca's team, a lot more kind of straightforward, a lot more offensive, I think. You've got the Zacian, very, very fast, very powerful. That Landorus and Kyogre combo, actually something that we're going to be seeing in a later division. Really, really top-tier pairing and good against the bulk of the metagame. But Alexander's off to a bit of a flying start for his team. I don't know if there's going to be any way to stop this Mimikyu. Disguise is doing exactly what it needs to do, and I think I know what's coming up to end this turn.
Yes, absolutely. The Throat Chop there are going to be able to break the disguise, but the Trick Room now quickly set up here for Alexander, which is really going to help that Dialga or that Ice Rider Calyrex shine.
Well, the thing I really like here is in this situation, was something we were talking about with that Trick Room team we were looking at in the Masters Division yesterday. The problem I had with it was the Incineroar had to start with the Mimikyu, right? It had to start there to fake it out. But the problem is then the Incineroar wasn't really doing enough damage or providing enough of a threat to really justify its inclusion throughout the team. So it's one of those unique situations where actually this Incineroar can do great damage with the Flare Blitz into the Zacian. It's just a good matchup for once, and you don't feel that pressure to try and switch out quite so quickly. Everything to deal with the Zacian this turn, though.
Absolutely. The Flare Blitz dealing good damage. The Will-O-Wisp as well from the Mimikyu connecting, but the Throat Chop coming in from Francesca's Incineroar just going to continue to try to chip away at this Mimikyu. So trading lots of good damage across the board.
Speaking of chip away, that Sacred Sword really didn't feel that impressive on that Incineroar after all of that. Really going to struggle to get good value out of that Zacian, but it is in a Trick Room anyway. 3 more turns. Let's see how Alexander can capitalize on them. Does have those options to reset it up as well, but I can easily see a Pokemon, if not 2, maybe going down from it. The Shadow Sneak, just everything is to deal with this restricted right now.
Just a little bit of damage there from that priority move, but the Flare Blitz follow-up here from Alexander's Incineroar will be enough to knock out this Zacian. So first knockout on the board, but what is Francesca's Incineroar going to do? A nice parting shot onto Alexander's Incineroar to be able to pivot out, and now a nice blank slate here for Francesca to position 2 new Pokemon.
And one of them could also be the Incineroar again. So this is 3 Pokemon, 2 choices. Obviously, you've got to pick them in the right order, but it's going to be a tough choice to make when you know you've got a lot more Trick Room to go through. Something like the Kyogre flourishes by being a little bit faster, moving first and firing off those big water spouts. I do love the selection of Kyogre here, though, as neither of the Pokemon, I think, on Alexander's side of the field really threaten it. So probably a good time to be a Kyogre right now, and you might be able to just polish off the Incineroar. My concern with that is if you do polish off the Incineroar, then you're allowing Alexander to bring in something with 2 turns of Trick Room, or at least 1 turn of Trick Room, to then start punishing and causing problems. So Kyogre playing it safe, I do quite like that. This is now Francesca looking at just stalling through the Trick Room.
Ooh, but the parting shot going into the Landorus. So Alexander will have the opportunity to pivot out the Incineroar and start taking advantage of the little Trick Room turns that are left. That Mimikyu is still active on the field, though, not really too pressured at the moment with that Trick Room being active.
No, not at all. And we saw the White Herb activate on the Landorus as well. So that parting shot isn't going to stick. I think that's important to remember as the Ice Rider Calyrex does take the field. Probably a better choice than a potential Dialga, just because Dialga would take a little bit more damage from this Landorus. That said, oh, it's a Wood Hammer from the Mimikyu into Kyogre. Not going to hit, but a huge reveal there.
Yeah, but the Earthquake as well from the Landorus. So Kyogre not only protecting from that Wood Hammer, but also from the partner. And that Mimikyu gets so low, but it is able to hold on.
Well, that Woodhammer's a big reveal, because that means this Trick Room, that final Trick Room turn we have coming up, could honestly be really treacherous for Kyogre. Actually, both of Francesca's Pokemon, I'd argue, are quite threatened. The Landorus by the Ice Rider Calyrex, and of course, the Woodhammer onto the Kyogre could cause problems. But very smart decision to try and take that damage a little bit better. It's time to Dynamax, and I like the Kyogre Dynamaxing. That Woodhammer's going to be nowhere near enough, and then you don't have to worry about something like the Water Spout anymore. You're just max geysering.
Especially because it won't be a same type attack bonus attack coming in from the Mimikyu, but wow, a side Shadow Sneak onto the Ice Rider Calyrex to be able to activate the weakness policy, and in these Trick Room conditions, that Glacial Lance is going to hurt. Landorus gets one hit knocked out, and Kyogre also takes a decent chunk of damage.
Absolutely no chance for the Landorus after that, not being able to deal with it in the slightest. Kyogre, though, firing off the Max Geyser, should be putting down a huge amount of damage, and yeah, that's into the Ice Rider Calyrex. Not Dynamax on that side. This is where Francesca needs to really start swinging momentum back, especially in this turn where there's no Trick Room for Alexander. So does have to be a little bit considerate over how to play this one. Does get a little bit harder as well when there is no ability to just Trick Room, just a Fake Out, sorry, and then Trick Room, because the Kyogre is going to be there. The Disguise is already busted. We're a little bit further down the line when it comes to this Trick Room.
Trick Room not active, and also that Mimikyu at such low HP. We saw the Incineroar from Francesca be able to use that Throat Chop to be able to break that Disguise earlier on in the game. But it really comes down to where these fake outs are going to go. Alexander has a really good target in the Incineroar on Francesca's side.
As long as Francesca makes sure that Mimikyu gets hit by something, I think everything is going to be fine. It's not going to be the Incineroar, so as long as the Kyogre targets that way, this game is going to come down to how much Dialga can do. Oh, but the Max Geyser goes into the Incineroar. Mimikyu's been left
able to remove that Incineroar, but Trick Room does go up a second time here for Alexander, and a free switch available to be able to bring in what I hope is the Dialga in the back.
I'd be very shocked if it wasn't the Dialga, because it needs to be a Dynamax candidate as well. Alexander not using the Dynamax yet, and yep, as soon as that Dialga gets revealed, I mean, probably feeling pretty safe, not worried about the Incineroar, could just Dynamax and go after this Kyogre right now. So just a slight misstep, I'd say, from Francesca there, leaving that Mimikyu alone, maybe relying on the Incineroar that was on the field to do the work required to take it out. You know, all it needed was a little bit of damage, 6 health, you know, a Throat Chop definitely would have got there. So I think that's maybe something to adjust going into game 2 for Francesca. But Alexander back in the driving seat, he's got his Trick Room up once again, and now he's got his Trick Room Sweeper up, which is going to be really hard to deal with in the case of, I think, both of these Pokemon, considering how healthy it is.
Max Quake from the Dialga will go into Francesca's Incineroar, but that Shuka Berry could potentially keep it a little bit safe. Incineroar able to hang on through that weakened damage from that super effective attack, but it's that special defense increase going to the Dialga that is going to make this battle just a little bit trickier. And the Wood Hammer from the Mimikyu as well, just doing a little bit of damage, but maybe that means that Francesca may not have to be as scared of that Wood Hammer reveal in the future.
It is quite an underwhelming amount of damage, I think it's fair to say, and I'm not taking away from the tech there, but you know, especially against Dynamax, and especially when you're hurting yourself, it would have been nice to maybe see a Shadow Sneak there, just to be able to put a little bit of damage down and allow a potential Shadow Sneak in the next turn, and maybe allow some of the damage to go that way rather than go into the Dialga. But it's the end of Dynamax for this Kyogre. The Dialga, you know, really just needs to be able to pick 2 attacks, not throw them into protects. Even if it goes into protect, make sure it's a max move, and just make sure that you pick off these Pokemon as best you can while the Trick Room is still up. That said, these Max Quakes are going to be boosting the special defense. They keep going into the Incineroar, making this Kyogre's job near impossible.
Going to be really tough for that Kyogre to get through these Dialga's special defense boosts. And with Incineroar being knocked out, it is a 1v1 in this first game. Kyogre going for the water spout, but look at how well those special defense boosts are going to protect that Dialga. And also Kyogre is at such low HP.
Yeah, the Kyogre versus Dialga is a matchup you don't want to be on the Kyogre side of, and sort of running out of steam. Both trainers playing a really great game one and a lot to take going into game two. Kyogre trying to get through the Trick Room so it can attack first, maybe reveal something that could help out a little bit, but even the Protect isn't going to keep you safe from the Max Wormwind. Not enough for the knockout, but enough to bring it treacherously low, and any attack from this Dialga that connects will be picking up that knockout. That said, Dialga is, of course, now back into its regular form, a lot more manageable when it comes to, you know, taking that damage, but it's got those 2 special defense boosts. I think if Francesco wants to win this game, going to have to stall out this last turn of Trick Room somehow, probably going to have to look for that double protect, a treacherous play, but not even going to go for it. The Dialga on the final turn just gets to wrap this one up.
First game of this junior division grand finals going over to Alexander.
Played it absolutely.
Leading the series right now with a 1-0 lead in this best of 3. But as we enter into this game 2, Alexander is leading with a little bit of a different strategy. It's that Dialga next to that Incineroar, and Francesca has the Landorus and the Incineroar. Double Intimidate on the field.
This is probably a much better situation for Francesca, being able to come in and see that Dialga as the potential Trick Room setter instead of the Mimikyu. I think Alex may be a little bit concerned that an answer to the Mimikyu had been found and wasn't going to want to play that game again, so just going with the Dialga as well. Does mean, though, that the Landorus is in a much better matchup. Of course, Landorus does get to attack super effectively into Dialga, and that's probably what Francesca wants to see. Francesca's team is so much more about fast offense. I don't want to say it's hyper offense, because I do think it's very, very well balanced, but here's a number of problems, I'd argue, for Alexander's side of the field, is this Dialga's not going to get to move this turn and could get really hurt as a follow-up.
Yeah, I really like the double up to try to stop this potential Trick Room maybe coming out from this Dialga or any type of attack, but the fake out just to ensure if you don't know what the other Incineroar's speed is, and then the Rock Slide on top of that for some good damage and a potential to also flinch.
Definitely making sure that flinch is an option, fake out and rock slide, guaranteed of course from the fake out, but showing that that is an option. It does get a little bit tricky for Francesca though, because the Earthquake, which would be preferred here I think, is going to hurt that Incineroar way too much and pop its own Sugar Berry, so it does have to be conscious of that, but it is all about stopping this Dialga right now, just throwing attacks into it. Look how bulky it is though, it's still not even below half, and this does allow Alexander to pivot around. I think Alexander here just praying there's no flinch from that earlier rock slide, and this game could get quite dicey quite quickly. This parting shot shows a commitment to bring in something that can sweep. I imagine we're going to see something like the Ice Rider Calyrex here. That would be a perfect pairing. All he's got to do is avoid the flinch. So let's see what it is. Yep, that's an Ice Rider Calyrex. I recognize that name from game number 1. And it's time for Dialga to give its opportunity to move.
Yeah, the Flare Blitz on top of that just to try to get some damage in there. But the Trick Room does go up, and now that that Ice Rider Calyrex is on the field as well, Alexander has 2 good choices for a Dynamax in the near future.
Doesn't have the option to, you know, throw out something like that Shadow Sneak that was activating the weakness policy. So there is going to be a slight delay in getting that Ice Rider Calyrex set up with a Shadow Sneak, but still huge damage coming out. Big spread damage available from that Ice Rider Calyrex as well. That spread damage is definitely enough to pick up the Landorus, unless, of course, it decides to Dynamax. And this Dialga, I prefer in this pairing Dynamaxing the Dialga. I just think it gives it a little more wiggle room on some of its moves, and you can set up those boosts really nicely as well to help out your team. So lowering attacks is really, really cool with something like Max Wormwind. Setting up special defense boosts when you see that Kyogre, really, really important too. And I think this next couple of turns is going to be quite explosive for Alexander as the Glacial Lance starts things off. And yeah, no Dynamax from Landorus. This is not a good time for it.
No, that Landorus will be one hit knocked out, and now that leaves Incineroar on the field to deal with an incoming attack from this Dialga. But most importantly, The Chilling Nay boost activating here on this Ice Rider Calyrex as the Max Quake from Dialga goes into the Incineroar, securing a second knockout. And now Francesca does get a chance to bring in those final 2 Pokemon, but those special defense boosts and that attack increase on that Ice Rider Calyrex may make this tough.
And you know what's really cool about this pairing on the field? That Max Quake gets the benefit of no berries, so didn't have to worry about the Sugar Berry in that turn. I was thinking about it for the turn. I was like, what's different here? Unnerve, no berry available, and that was an easy pairing of knockouts, of course, for this combo. I mean, yeah, you're back to just both restricted pairings on the field, but Alexander's is in a much stronger position, in my opinion. Of course, this Kyogre can Dynamax. It has to Dynamax, actually, to keep Francesca in the game, but those special defense boosts are going to start to add up. And honestly, if you're the Dialga, keep doing it. Keep throwing those down. Target the Zacian with them. You're going to do huge amounts of damage with them. And allow, I guess, your Ice Rider Calyrex to just keep throwing down good little chunks of damage while you can. Here's the confirmation of the Dynamax, though, and this is Francesca's one way out.
Kyogre will be very important here to just be able to survive some of these incoming attacks from these Pokemon that Alexander has in that Ice Rider Calyrex and that Dialga. So Kyogre can definitely use the rain to its advantage, but the Max Guard as well to be able to stall out some of these turns from the Trick Room, as well as this increased damage. But the Max Quake now also going to be going into the Zacian. And Zacian goes down in one hit. It's all up to this Kyogre.
Yeah, that is a critical hit that takes out the Zacian. Absolutely felled, and now this is a really tough beat for Francesca. You know, it's so hard to follow along when, you know, you've got 2 special defense boosts on 2 restricted Pokemon facing down your Kyogre. Your Kyogre can't spread attack right now because it is in the Dynamax form, and you know, even if you get through that, yes, you'll be able to pick off the Incineroar in the back, but there's a mystery 4th Pokemon that you have to deal with as well, and it's going to be so tough as, yeah, it looks like it's just all in on the Kyogre in the last turn of Trick Room. Another Max Quake for more special defense boosts. Oh, this Kyogre is getting really hurt and is going to really struggle to fire back.
It is that Dialga did take a good amount of damage before it did Dynamax and also set up the Trick Room, but the Max Hailstorm now going to be going into this Dialga, just doing a bit of damage and also setting up this Hail for the end of these turns. But at least the Dialga's Dynamax is over.
Yep, Dialga's Dynamax is done, but there's still this Ice Rider Calyrex on the field, which isn't going to be taking any hail damage, and it's still both these Pokemon with 3 special defense boosts. I think the Ice Rider Calyrex here could probably just wall the Kyogre out just because of all of those boosts, and this is the last turn of Trick Room, so it wouldn't shock me to see another Max Guard maybe, but then the question is, can you stop the Trick Room going back up, or does Alexander even need it? Can he just bring in his last Pokemon, and once this Kyogre as well goes back to regular form, it's going to look a lot more manageable. No Max Guard here.
No.
Just means the Kyogre is going to get hit.
Time as well. Going to be enough to knock out this Kyogre, and with that knockout, Alexander Musicant becomes your Junior Division Grand Champion